All right, let's get to number 3 here. And Greg, you threw this one on here, and I think there's a bunch of different ways we could have gone with this one. But really, I think one of the key points this season was who was going to be the third guy for the Heat. And I think that this became a bigger issue when there seemed to be more established third guys that the Heat could go after, right? The whole James Harden thing before the season ever started, which I think got in some of the players' heads on this team, whether you're going to make a run at Bradley Beal, whether you can maybe try to pry John Collins loose, whether or not you might get Victor Oladipo, which they ended up doing, and that lasted all of 4 games. But on the roster, if there was going to be a third player this year, it was supposed to be Tyler Herro. And there were moments it was, but not enough of them. Now, he played really well down the stretch. He sort of found his game, was shooting 65% from 3 over, I think, a 5-game period. It's just the consistency. So I'll just get to it this way. We saw Tyler Herro essentially act as a third guy at times, although it was more often Goran Dragic during the playoffs last year. Can Tyler Herro, if Goran can't give them that in the postseason consistently, can Tyler Herro be the third guy?
Yeah, I think to start out, Goran was the third guy, and I think his salary dictated that as well. But it was also predicated on everyone thinking here any regression that you would see from Goran, just naturally, that you would be seeing it made up by Herro. And this year, I mean, you have to honestly kind of look at it that he was basically, a couple percentage points behind from a 3-point shooting perspective. Otherwise, pretty flat to last year with stats, but he didn't have those same moments and those same just the late game stuff and just the hot streaks and the making guys fall down and the confidence factor stuff. It's just some of it just looked like it was missing. And this is a question that if you asked me at the beginning of the season, do I want to move Herro for a more win now player? I would have said no. I want to protect the back end of this franchise's window and align with Bam Adebayo and his timeline and his age. And now I have to be honest, this playoff run, we talked about what can Bam do to get in the good graces of the fan base to justify his max. I don't even think that's the question for me. I'm watching Tyler Herro in these playoffs, and I want to know, is he ready to take that next step, or is he going to have to become the piece that gets the third guy?
Yeah, I pretty much agree there. I was definitely a year ago, and even not even a year ago, after the bubble, I was more hesitant to trade Tyler unless it was for, a much bigger piece. We used to talk about Bradley Beal a whole lot. I don't know if he's cool with that 9th seed. It seems like he is. But in general, I agree. I think Tyler is somebody who I would trade for a win now player. I don't remember if you guys end up convincing me to kind of go on that page of trading him for Lowry during the trade deadline stuff. I may have caved at the end there before it ended up not happening, but I did not like that idea. I just think,
me neither.
As much as I love Lowry as an option for this team, I knew that, and this was an argument against Oladipo, I thought this was more relevant for Lowry because Lowry's the guy you actually want to use cap space on. You want to, you can just get him in the offseason, right? And maybe they don't get him, but it seems like they've got a real chance there. And that's not somebody that I think that's worth trading Tyler for only because of the age factor. I just think it's too much of a gap, right? And even though Lowry's still really good, I think you can throw Tyler into a package with other guys, I think, and I think you have something there. But to me, Tyler's just had a lot of peaks and valleys. I see the growth from him. I see the confidence is back. I think a lot of that seemingly had to do with the foot, and ever since he came back from that, he just looks kind of like how he used to, more or less. To me, he's still a good player. I'm not really worried about him going forward. I think he needs to grow into his body a little bit. I still think he's somebody, along with Kendrick, even though they don't have their games are not that similar. They're both kind of junior 3-level scorers, right? They can do a little bit of everything from that end, from that aspect. But Tyler is somebody worth keeping to me, unless, there's just an awesome guy out there that's worth having.
I am leaning toward the fact that Tyler Herro is not going to make it through this cycle with the Heat.
What do you mean by cycle?
I think, to me, the Jimmy cycle.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can even suggest how it'll happen. It'll happen quickly, and Ethan will go right back to you. You sign Lowry with space, and I think Hero becomes a piece that you package together to go get the other piece to kind
that's
of
what I'm saying.
tie a bow on that roster.
That's what I'm saying is that that's why you didn't trade Hero before. I think I don't. You're talking about two cycles here. There's a Jimmy cycle and there's a Bam cycle. I don't think Hero survives the Jimmy cycle to get to the Bam cycle. I thought so before, but again, Pat Riley is on a clock here, and Jimmy Butler is on a clock, and it's not that Tyler's not a good player, but to me, Tyler becomes the Justice, becomes the Josh Richardson, becomes the Caron Butler, becomes the Lamar Odom that is traded to get the piece to fill this thing out. I think what this season proved is they don't really have time to wait. And I know people are going to come after me when we talk about depth here and say what I said about Harden and all that. I never said you don't trade Hero for Harden. I said you don't trade the whole damn team for Harden. And the reality is, as we've said many times before, it wasn't even an option. Okay, so it's not like they took our advice or anything like that. Houston didn't want the type of things that the Heat were offering at that time, or that the Heat could offer because they didn't have the draft picks. But I just think Tyler Herro becomes the guy that maybe gets the first round pick that gets you somebody, or he becomes the guy that gets you, the better player at that position at this time, and you live with whatever his upside is. I also think that what's happened to Justice and Josh, excuse me, since they left is a little bit more of an impetus to move Tyler, because there were concerns in the organization, particularly about Josh, about moving him. And we've seen it hasn't worked out for Josh in two other places. Like, there's no real regret there, right? With Justice, it hasn't worked out. I don't think there was regret when they made the trade, because I think they were done with him, but it hasn't worked out. So I think with Tyler, it's kind of the same thing. And even if you look at the other guys that they've traded, the Pats traded to get the piece, okay? Lamar Odom had a very good career with the Lakers. He was a sixth man, which is where he was most comfortable. He wasn't the spotlighted guy. Kobe loved playing with him. Caron had a very nice career where he bumped around to a bunch of different teams as maybe their third best player on a whole bunch of teams. But it was neither of them turned into guys that were completely irreplaceable, right? Even Glenn Rice, who's the ultimate example of this, he became an all-star after he left. You love Glenn Rice. I loved watching Glenn Rice. Glenn Rice was not a centerpiece like Zoe. You didn't regret.
I learned quickly.
Right. I know this goes counter to all the conversations we had about Harden.
He was your Justice?
What's that?
So he was your Justice, Leif?
Back then, yes, I was so mad at Pat. But then I quickly learned that there's a vision there. So anyway, back to Ethan.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to survive the cycle. It's not disparaging him, but he's not as advanced as Bam. And I think that anybody that Jimmy is going to play with during this period of time has to be at least as advanced as Bam to be one of their top three players. And I still think Goran's going to be here, because I don't think Jimmy wants him gone. And Kendrick Nunn has become a conversation now too. I heard some numbers about Kendrick Nunn yesterday, not from his side, but from people around the league, that you may be looking at 15 per at a lot of years. It's going to be a complicated situation.
Hey man, I like you, Kendrick, but peace.
Hey man, I'm happy for you. Go chase that bag.
I'm just saying. All right.